we're off, and we start the week this week with both of our teams in the top 8 on the same score.
Yes.
Same number of points. Both having had played the same amount of games as well. So
that's only separated by differential. That's it.
Yeah, Dragons differential terrible because they've had been smashed so many times.
Yeah, Bulldogs in 5th spot, Dragons in 8th spot. As you said, both teams on 20 competition points. It is a case of don't look down for both teams because there's only 2 points separating the 5th place Bulldogs and the 12th placed Raiders. So, yeah, I mean, our teams are in good positions, but they need to keep winning. They can't afford any slip-ups. So 8 wins, 7 losses after 15 games. There's 9 games to go. I think you need a minimum of 13 wins to make the 8. So they're going to need to win 5 of their last 9 to get there, most likely, and that's never going to be easy. So there's hopefully certainly no complacency from our two teams.
I think the Bulldogs have an easier draw. So the Bulldogs have to play Warriors this week and then a bye, then Cowboys, Broncos, Raiders, Dragons, Dolphins, Warriors again, Sea Eagles, Cowboys. So they're playing all in the middle. So
you would like to think that they could win 5 of those 9 and get there, I would have thought.
Playing all in the middle kind of teams, whereas the Dragons have Roosters, Broncos, Panthers, Storm, Bulldogs, Titans, Sharks, Eels, Canberras. So a bunch of top-tier teams and a bunch of in-the-middle teams.
Yeah, I think if the Bulldogs don't get there now, I think we'd view their season as a failure. I think the goalposts have shifted now for them. I think the position they're in, the draw they've got to come. At this stage, I'd be saying that if they don't make the 8 now, their season's been a failure, given how far they've come and given the form that they've shown. That's an expectation for me now that they'd make the top 8 this year.
It's a bit harsh. I'm still happy that the Dragons aren't 16th.
Look, I know. Look, that's the thing. Look, if you were to assess it at the start of the season, you wouldn't have said that. But I'm just saying, I think now it's fair to say that expectations have now changed. I think you can alter your expectations as the season goes on. You don't have to just stick to what your expectations were at the start of the season. Like, things have changed. They're clicking. They're a much better side now than they were in any of the previous 7 seasons where they didn't make the top 8. So I think there's nothing wrong with sort of reassessing your expectations as new information comes to light. And look, I think they were lucky to get away with that. I know Cronulla are a quality team, and I am a harsh judge. Everybody's a harsh judge of their own team. That's just the way it is. But I think they were very fortunate. They didn't score a try after the 13th minute on Friday night. That try to Reid Marnie was their last try of the game. They went the last 67 minutes without scoring a try. The Cronulla scored 3 tries to 2. But that having been said, they still found a way to win, and they were playing against a good side. To give them credit, they weren't attacking very well, especially in the second half. But they did find a way.
I think they were very tight. All of their players backed up from Origin, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Crichton was the only one. Yeah, so
that's right. He was the only one who went. I was just thinking Burton as well, but he wasn't.
Was snubbed, as we all know, very harshly.
So they won based really on goal kicking and that field goal.
Yeah, and we will get to it a bit later. I mean, Nicho Hynes having another slip-up in a pressure situation. We will get that is on our rundown. We will come to it in a little bit.
On the, I'll tell you a funny thing that happened this weekend. Like, with all of the expert tips, mine, yours, Julie Snooks, Mitchell Pearce, Craig Gower, whoever tipped against the green was right. So, Pearcey was a genius on Friday because he tipped the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Gowie was a genius on... When did the Warriors play? Saturday? Saturday? Because he tipped the Warriors. And I was a genius on Sunday because I tipped the Dragons. So there's a
Yeah,
fine line between genius and
I don't
madman.
think I had any genius moments with the tipping, that's for sure.
No, you. That's the thing. Like there was. It's come to the point now where basically everyone's tips are going to be the same. You know, like when you get to this point in the season, everyone's tips are basically going to be the same across the board because you know who's going to win. And then there's just those. I don't know why I tipped the Dragons. Like Zach Lomax didn't play.
Did a really good win for the Dragons, 26-6 over the Dolphins.
It was a masterstroke.
Very impressive. Well done.
When who was the cover centre went down? Whoever covered the centre. Oh, I had it on silent. That's why I can't remember any of the people. It was Max Figo went down.
Right, yeah.
And then Jaden Sewer had to, backing up from Origin, move over to the opposite side of the field and cover centre. And I was like, well, this is going to be... That's one of those situations, you know, where you go like, it's not going to be good now. And he was phenomenal. Maybe that guy's a centre after one game. On the opposite side of the field. It was amazing. He got the most fantasy points. Scored a really good try carrying players over the field.
Did down 6-2 at half time at second half. Very impressive.
It was phenomenal.
24-0 second half.
And then it would have been more if Kyle Flanagan's converting hadn't let him down. So obviously...
Yeah, 2 from 4. Or 3 from 6, I should say.
Lomax not playing and Dragons don't really have a very good cover goal kicker, I guess. So that could hurt them later in the season. Especially with... There's still one more Origin, right?
Yeah.
There's still one more Origin.
Decided to come on the 17th of July. So that 2.5 weeks away.
That could really hurt them later if Lomax isn't available, and then they're left with... I mean, Flanagan's having the season of his lifetime, but they don't have a backup goal kicker, then that's a really important thing.
Yeah, well done to Kyle Flanagan. A lot of us were sceptical going into the season, thinking that, well, he only got the contract because of his dad being the coach, but he's come on in leaps and bounds for them this year. He's been really good for them this year, so full credit to him.
Meanwhile, getting back to our rundown,
yes,
Teflon Sticky,
yes,
he's probably going to get a fine. Possibly going to get another fine this week because it's all the refs' fault that the Raiders are going so badly.
Yeah.
They've lost 3 on the trot.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the Storm in Melbourne, that's okay. You can lose that one, but to the Tigers and the Cowboys...
But they have lost 3 in a row and they are 12th on the ladder as well. In isolation, that'd be okay, but...
combined with the fact they haven't won at home in a while as well, since 17th of May against the Bulldogs. And they got pumped on the weekend by the Storm.
And I think that one against the Bulldogs, I think that might have even been in Magic Round. So while it was technically a home game, it was played in Brisbane, I believe.
It was, yeah.
So, I mean, it's technically a home game, but it's not really a home game.
The last time
their
they
record
won
at GIO Stadium is ordinary this year.
The last time they won at GIO was against the Titans by 1 point in April.
Yeah, and again, we should, as we pointed out again, we're in the winter months. This is where Canberra their home ground is supposed to be a huge advantage to them at this time of year. In the winter months where you get these really cold nights, the temperature gets below 0 degrees in the winter in Canberra, especially at night time. This is where the Raiders are supposed to be coming into their own at home and winning a lot of games at home, but things have just gone pear-shaped for them this year.
The coach has got a new 5-year contract.
Oh, yeah, he's contracted until 2029. Job security is not an issue for him, even if a whole bunch of other things are with his football team, that's for sure. He says the journalist didn't even ask him a question on this. He answered a question that was directed at Elliot Whitehead, and he couldn't help himself but jump in. And he says, to answer your question, pointing to the journalist, we were on the wrong side of the guessing game again. They're just guessing, mate. He's talking about the referees. Those 6 agains, they just guess. I'll give one away here, I'll give one away there. And then later on, he blamed his players. He said, I've got to make changes to try and spark revival, and that was there tonight, but we were just poor with the ball. You've seen our last two performances. Something had to give. I can't just sit on my hands.
Yeah, that was,
this is what he said.
In response to... He moved someone new to fullback, right?
Yeah, it was... I've got it here. Sorry, I've got it here. KO Weeks to fullback.
Yeah.
He moved Adam Cook into the halves. So he reshuffled the spine. But yeah, I mean, you know.
Well,
again, it's always it's the referees. So he blames the referees. He blames his players. When's he ever going to take responsibility? I mean, the set restart count, it was 7-4. The penalty count was 5-4. It's not like there was a huge discrepancy. He can't just blame it on that. And even then, I mean, you've got to look at them individually. You can't just look at it and go, oh, we were down in the count, so we were robbed. I mean, you know, you've got to look at the individual decision.
They lost by 10 points.
They lost by 10 points. So sometimes he blames the referees. I mean, he blamed the referees in the press conference. He blamed his players. Other times, him and his media posse, they'll blame the injuries. Other times, him and his media posse will blame the fact that, well, they're based in Canberra and nobody wants to live in Canberra, so therefore it's hard to recruit players. I'll tell you what, in the 1980s and 1990s, they didn't have much trouble recruiting players. They had one of the best sides in the 1990s. They won premierships in 1989, 1990 and 1994. Recruiting players wasn't a problem then, but all of a sudden now that Ricky's the coach and he needs some excuses, all of a sudden it's a problem for them now.
The problem at Canberra, I think, is they're not very well coached.
Well, you could draw that conclusion given that they've now gone 10 seasons without winning a premiership under this coach, soon to be 11. I think in 12th spot at this stage, I don't think they're winning the premiership this year. Sorry, I know they're not far away from the 8. I know there's a log jam of teams, but seriously, they're not going to win the premiership. Well, on current form,
they got the Knights, then a bye, then the Warriors, and the Rabbitohs, and the Bulldogs, then the Sea Eagles, and the Cowboys, and the Panthers, the Roosters, Dragons. They don't have... They got a middle-of-the-road kind of draw left for the last rounds, but I don't really, honestly, out of all those teams, I don't see them beating any of them. You know, like the Warriors, the Warriors are up and down, but, you know, I don't see the Raiders beating them. I don't see them beating the Rabbitohs in current form. Bulldogs, definitely not. Sea Eagles, probably not. Cowboys are up and down, but I wouldn't tip the Raiders on that. Panthers, definitely not. Roosters, definitely not. Dragons, I reckon, can get them at home in Sydney because Dragons have got a good home record this year. So, you know, and that's not like my tips might change week to week as they do, but based on the last 3 weeks, if I had to tip the rest of the season for the Raiders, I'd tip against them for all the matches.
Oh, well, and if that were to happen, well, they're not making the 8, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when we look at the Bulldogs and the Dragons draws, I could tip up and down on either of them, you know. Like I said, like Dragons will win this game based on the current form, last week's form or the last few weeks' form. Dragons will win this game, Bulldogs will win this game, Dragons will lose that one, Bulldogs will lose that one and stuff. I could do a ladder predictor with some they'd win, some they'd lose, and they possibly get there. But the Raiders, I can't. I just see them now, based on their current form. They can't win at home. They can't win away. They can't look like winning. So you put them against any of those teams. Like the Knights, not. Warriors, not. Rabbitohs, not. Bulldogs, not. Sea Eagles, not. Cowboys, not. Panthers, definitely not. Roosters, not. Dragons, not.
Yeah. I mean, every time the Raiders lose a game, maybe here at SmartB we should frame a betting market on what excuse Ricky Stuart's going to make in the press conference. I reckon the referees would be about $1.02. Injuries would be about $1.90. And the fact that Canberra can't recruit players because no one wants to live there would be about $2.50. I reckon that would be your betting market going into every Ricky Stuart press conference on what excuse he's going to make next.
It's a weird one because his players talk about, and Craig Gower talked about, like how Ricky's a popular coach because he always got his players back. But it is one of his lines, you know, where he puts it on the players and says, you know, I had to change things. They weren't playing well. Some of the guys didn't put in tonight or whatever, So they do have some injuries, but it's irrelevant. When they had a full-strength side, they didn't look like winning. The Raiders at no point this year have looked like they started off the year a bit unexpectedly, but they did play the Knights and the Tigers and then got started. That's when they beat the Eels, the Titans. You look at the teams they've beat. They just beat the Sea Eagles. They did beat the Bulldogs. You look at the teams they've lost to, and again, they've lost to the Tigers and the Cowboys.
Yeah, look, I don't know what was more clunky on the weekend, the Raiders' attack or Joe Biden's performance in the debate. I mean, seriously.
I don't know what he just said at the end of that was probably the funniest line in the debate. Raiders were terrible, and Ricky Stuart will continue. We'll see what happens next week. They got the Warriors. Warriors are all over the shop. Honestly, one of the things I read about the Warriors on the weekend was it's a bit weird because they're winning when they don't have Sean Johnson in and losing when he's in.
I did hear that as well. I covered that Warriors-Broncos game on Saturday and I heard the same thing from a colleague of mine. That record without Sean Johnson is a real... Sorry, the record with Sean Johnson is a real worry. The record without him is a lot better.
Yeah.
Which is very, very strange. And it doesn't do a lot for Sean Johnson's market value, does it? If his team are winning, if his team are performing better without him than they are with him, that's a real concern for him.
They extend him to next year as well. They gave him a new contract to next year.
To look that up.
Something needs to happen over the Warriors, but still, I'd give them the coin flip slightly ahead of the Raiders right now because Raiders aren't a coin flip to me. When I have to, again, I don't do my tips till Thursday, but if I had to flip a coin, you could flip a coin for the Warriors and you don't know where it's going to end up. But I flip a coin for the Raiders right now, and 9 times out of 10, I know it's going to end up in loss. Yeah. So at this point in time, right now, I would tip the Warriors to pip them because Warriors have more of a chance of getting heads. If heads is win and tails is lost, Warriors are going to get heads a lot more right now than the Raiders are.
Yeah, I'm just having a look for this Sean Johnson contract situation. No, I think at this stage he's only contracted until the end of this season. Okay. I think at this stage, so that could change. That could definitely change. But I mean, in terms of Ricky Stuart, that's 10 seasons at the helm now. He hasn't won a premiership. Soon to be 11 seasons. This year, they're not going to win it. Only 3 times he's reached the preliminary finals or better. Another 2 times he's bombed out of the finals, and 5 times he's missed the 8 altogether. Probably soon to be 6. So
that's all right. He's got 5 years to go on his contract.
Oh yeah. Seriously, we'll work that one out. But I've never heard him actually take responsibility for the loss in any press conference. I've never heard him actually go, look, maybe I need to have a look at my performance as coach. I need to take accountability for this. I've never heard those words come out of his mouth in all of his coaching career.
No.
Takes no responsibility for his team's performance.
You could do a Ricky Stuart bingo sheet at the beginning of the year and none of them would ever be, none of the ones on the bingo sheet will be like, Ricky will say that it was his fault.
Right. No, that's just... No way. As again, if you were framing that betting market I was talking about, Ricky Stuart taking responsibility himself for the loss wouldn't be a betting option. Yeah. Because if you were framing that market on what excuse he's going to use in the press conference.
Yeah. I know there's some bookmakers in other countries that will give you odds on anything. You can actually bet on whether the sun will rise tomorrow and stuff like that. But obviously the odds are like you have to bet $1 billion to make $1. But I should see if I can find one and get odds on Ricky Stuart accepting blame for his team losing and see what they say. Pay $700.
There'd be long odds. There'd be very long odds.
We touched on it before. Nicho Hynes, he had a sitter of a field goal.
Yeah, he
had the perfect chance to win that game and missed it. Yeah. So now everyone is commenting again because he can't handle pressure. Someone pointed out to me. It was actually while I was rolling on the weekend, doing jiu-jitsu on the weekend. No, I had a jiu-jitsu competition on the weekend. One of the guys pointed out to me, Nicho Hynes was leading the Dally M points last year before Origin, and then lost all form. And this year he was leading near the top of the Dally M points before Origin, and now has dropped off. It's all behind closed doors now and stuff like that, but he's not getting Dally M points for his performances on the last few weeks. If I was him, I'd withdraw from Origin completely.
This is the thing. It seems to be having a negative impact on him. I mean, you can't help but get away with it. I mean, I know Joseph Suoliti was sent off early in that game, and obviously that had a heavy impact on that result. But the fact of the matter is, he was playing in that game where they got hammered by Queensland in Game 1. Then he gets dropped, and then Mitchell Moses stars in Game 2 and guides New South Wales to victory. And obviously that's going to have a negative impact on him. You talk about it, he missed a golden opportunity in Golden Point to seal that result. Missed the field goal. It was a straightforward field goal opportunity. It was missed. He also missed that tricky sideline conversion after the siren in a 30-28 loss to the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago as well. So there's this worrying trend of Nicho Hynes not aiming up in the big pressure moments in games, and look, it's a real concern now.
But so prior to Origin, this is what the guy was telling me on the weekend. Prior to Origin, there were no clutch games as well. Like, you look at the scores for the year for the Sharks. So 16-12 against the Warriors, 25-6 Bulldogs, 32-6 they lost. Against the Tigers, 36-22 against the Raiders, 34-22 against the Rabbitohs, 42-6 against the Cowboys, 40-0 against the Raiders, 20-10 against the Dragons, 25-18 against Storm, 38-30 against the Roosters, lost 42-0 against the Panthers without Nicho Hynes, I think. 34-22 to the Eels, 22-12, and then 30-28. That was that penalty goal they missed against the Dolphins, and 15-14 was the field goal miss against the Bulldogs. So Nicho Hynes, unfortunately for him, isn't your clutch player. And the Sharks, you need a clutch player. Like, you have to have one. The guy that will, or one or two guys in your team that, when it is Golden Point, when it is, we're in a bit of trouble here, you've got to kick this conversion. You need that guy. Otherwise, you end up like the Sharks. Because when it comes to big games, like the finals and stuff like that, that becomes more evident. It comes down to goal kicking. It comes down to, Jonathan Thurston missed that conversion from the sideline to seal the victory against the Broncos, and then had that shot at field goal to do it. Those clutch players will miss 50% of the time, but hit 50% of the time. And it's the fact is Nicho Hynes isn't hitting 50% of the time. He's hitting 0% of the time, and it's going to be a massive issue for the Sharks. But the effect on the Sharks overall as a unit, because of the effect on Nicho Hynes after Origin the last 2 years, that's also a thing that they need to take care of for Nicho Hynes. Like, he goes away to Origin, he gets ruined by Origin, he comes back and the Sharks get ruined. Seriously, if I was him, I'd do the Jack Whiten. I don't want you guys to break my season anymore. You keep ruining my season.
It's becoming a tricky one. I mean, you mentioned Jonathan Thurston before, how he hit the post in that grand final. The game goes to Golden Point, and then he kicks the field goal to win it. I mean, that's the example of an extremely mentally tough player. That you have the ability of putting the huge disappointment of missing a goal to win a grand final behind you immediately, to then very quickly pick yourself up and kick a field goal to win that game in Golden Point. That shows an extraordinary level of mental toughness.
Yes, exactly.
And Nicho Hynes just doesn't have that. You would have to say.
Something that came out of this game, which was, picked up later, was... obviously Nicho Hynes was dejected, and Stephen Crichton, who is definitely becoming. Do they have a Captain of the Year award at the Dally M's? Definitely becoming captain.
I don't know whether there's the team of the year. I don't know if they actually give a captain of the year or whether they name a captain out of the team of the year. I'm not sure.
They should create the Stephen Crichton Captain of the Year medal for the Dally M's.
He'd get it this year if it
because
was there.
He ran off the field to comfort Nicho Hynes and let him know that, fuck all the haters. And then ran back and did his media commitments. Now that's a player for the opposing team that you've just beaten, and Stephen Crichton runs over there. I know that New South Wales teammates and everything, but runs over there to comfort him and tell him, don't worry about it, bro. You're Nicho Hynes. No, we don't exactly know exactly what was said, but he went over to comfort the opposing team's playmaker. It's just phenomenal. What a guy.
Very impressive. Very impressive character, Stephen Crichton.
That show is really honestly, one of the biggest things to the Bulldogs turn around this year is Stephen Crichton's leadership. When he was given as captain, they took the captainship away from captaincy away from Matt Burton, I think.
Reid Marnie.
Reid Marnie last year. There was a bit of criticism.
I think they were co-captains,
A bit of criticism in the media, how do you have a guy come in, he's only 23 years old, he's new to the club.
Clearly age doesn't matter. Stephen Crichton's a born leader.
Go back and retract your statements, media.
Yeah, just on the Bulldogs, I didn't want to sound too harsh before. Look, all I'm saying is that I think given the position... Obviously, at the start of the year, if you said they were going to nearly make the 8 but not quite get there, you would have been happy with that. But all I'm saying is, given how well they're playing at the moment, obviously expectations change over time, and given the relatively easy draw that they have that you mentioned before, given how well they're playing, given their position on the ladder of 5th, I'm just saying that, and I know there's a log jam of teams behind them, but I'm just saying that as things stand right now, I would see it from this point on, I would see it as a failure if they don't make it. But obviously at the start of the season, you probably would have taken a 9th or 10th finish. But I just think where they're at now, as I said, the easy draw, the way they're playing, you'd be really disappointed if they didn't make the 8 from here. That's all I was saying on that.
So they're going to have a bye during the Origin teams, and then Stephen Crichton will have to back up again for their next game, actually, after Origin.
I just heard Yvonne Sampson and James Graham talking after the game about how the Bulldogs have played grand finals in 1974, 1984, 1994, 2004, 2014, and there's that symmetry if they were to do it in 2024. And I know that they probably just got told, that's an interesting fact, and put it out there, but... Yeah, I think a grand final, is a stretch. There's quite a few teams that are ahead of them on that.
There's a thing. There's also a thing where Bulldogs won the grand final after something it's really weird. Maybe after Parramatta lost or something 3 years later, the Bulldogs won. There's some weird thing. There's a whole voodoo thing at the beginning of the year, mathematical voodoo thing. Universal pattern creation around the Bulldogs.
Well, this is the other thing. They lost the grand final in 74. They won it in 84. They lost it in 94. They won it in 2004. They lost it in 2014. So, but I think... Yeah, I think, winning the premiership, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. They need to qualify for the 8 first, and to do that, they need to get to 13 wins. And to do that, they need to win 5 of their last 9 games.
I think it might actually be more, right? I think it used to be, and now it's actually more as well. I think you have to be ahead.
I think 13 wins is a minimum number. That's
so it's 13. Yeah, 13. So that puts you over half and half. 12.
I don't think, because when you got 17 teams to make the top 8, I think you got to win more than half. If you were to just win half your games, I don't think that's going to be enough to get there.
No, it's not anymore since last
the 17th teams come in. Yeah.
Don't worry, the Raiders will make it. Oh God, I've lost my page now. There it is. I saw this news article about Wayne Bennett whining about send-offs and sin binning and how we should change the sin bin rule. And I saw this morning someone agreed with it. Trent Robinson maybe agreed with it. So Wayne Bennett wants to drastically overhaul the send-off system. So what will it be? It'll be the team will be a man down for 10 minutes, and then that player that is sent off isn't able to come back, but the team will be able to interchange a player on. And put
from what I read, Wayne Bennett's proposal is to dock teams of 3 interchanges rather than send a player off. So that was his idea. Lose 3 interchanges, but should not result in teams losing a player on the field.
And sin bins only for professional fouls.
Yeah, only for professional fouls.
Which I agree with that one.
Sin bins. I don't have a problem with that either.
I totally agree with that.
It's just the problem with his solution to the send-off is that there's no in-game penalty imposed on the player himself. There's a penalty against his team, but the player gets off scot-free. And you might say, well, the player gets suspended. Well, yeah, that's true, but there's no benefit. The team that he committed the act of foul play against gets no... Yeah. You know what I mean? They get no benefit.
Because there's that bit to it. It is also they should lose 3 interchanges. But the first part of it is if a player's sent off after 10 minutes, they can bring an interchange player on. So they go back to the full complement on the team, but then they also lose 3 interchanges.
Okay, so that wasn't included in the reports I read. That part of it wasn't included. I've just seen that they lose the 3 interchanges.
Yeah. But
even then, I mean,
he uses an example.
It still takes away the deterrent.
I don't personally. I don't like the send-off because it puts a team down to 12 players and it predetermines the game. Okay, like that's what it does. It predetermines the game. If there's more than half of the game left, you send someone off, the other team's going to win.
But isn't it? It's supposed to act as it's supposed to hurt the team that loses.
That's because it's punishing the team for the thing of a single player. And that's the only reason I don't like it, though. There has to be a send-off rule because what if someone comes out and intentionally coat hangers someone?
Yeah. If you don't want your team to go down to 12 men, well, don't commit an act of foul play that gets a player sent off.
My issue with the sin bin and the send-off is the consistency. And that's nobody would be talking about it if there was consistency. There was somebody was sent off on the weekend. I can't remember who it was. A sin binned on the weekend for a hip drop tackle, right? Now, again, it comes down to this thing where the tackle started without a hip drop being in place. The player making the tackle wasn't doing the hip drop. And then someone hit the opposing player from the front and caused the player on the back of him who was making the tackle swing around and land on the legs. And it was all caused by halter momentum and stuff like that. So the hip drop wasn't happening. And then the actions of your teammate causes like a, rolling momentum thing to cause you to do a hip drop and you get sin binned. It's okay, like he's been sin binned. But then you have this hip drop tackle on Spencer Leniu in Origin. That wasn't a sin bin. And then you have that same thing, like the Roger Tuivasa-Sheck lifting tackle that wasn't a lifting tackle. And you can, seriously, go and listen to, it was Casey Badger, yeah? Casey Badger's video ref bunker call. She was the one that said that has to be taken out. And she says, there's no danger in the lift. As it hits the ground, he's tilted upwards. That's where your danger is. You're going to have to do a sin bin. And then there was a lifting tackle on James Tedesco in Origin that wasn't a sin bin. And you wouldn't be having the radical overhauls wouldn't be needed if there was consistency, actually, because you would know. Because his whole thing has come from, he reckons, inconsistencies in refereeing have resulted in some teams, including the Dolphins, being treated unfairly and losing games because of it.
Look,
Then the other one that he really addresses, which I also hate, it creates inconsistency, is the milking that is going on, where a player stays down, and then they get a penalty, and then the independent doctor doesn't say that it's a concussion, or vice versa. The player stays down, doesn't get a penalty, and then the independent doctor says, "Oh, that's a concussion." You know, like that inconsistency, and the fact that you have both creates an inconsistency, which makes it really frustrating for fans. I actually really agree with the sin bin for professional fouls only. I hate the sin bin for the hip drop because of the inconsistencies and things like that.
Look, I agree with that too. I agree with his thoughts on the sin bin for professional fouls automatically. I get that. But so this send off proposal he's putting forward is obviously the team loses 3 interchanges and the player goes off for 10 minutes and gets replaced. Now,
the 3 interchanges thing is completely dumb.
I just see are people being too swayed by what happened with Suoliti. Now with Suoliti, I mean obviously we didn't agree on the decision, but yeah, Reece Walsh was definitely falling as he made contact with Suoliti. Now are people like Wayne Bennett viewing this through the lens of Suoliti, going, well look, he got him in the head. But, you know, it was a tackle that easily went wrong because Reece Walsh fell. And then you go, well, maybe in that example what Wayne Bennett's saying could apply. But there could be other examples where it's just a grotesque act of foul play where someone does get clocked in the head completely unfairly, completely unjustifiably. And I'd argue that in that scenario is the player going off for 10 minutes and the team losing 3 interchanges.
Well, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, the player being removed from the game and a replacement coming on in 10 minutes and the team losing 3 interchanges. Is that enough of a deterrent for grotesque acts of foul play?
Well,
that are worse than what Suoliti did. I feel like a lot of people in this debate have got the Suoliti send-off at the forefront of their minds.
So there's a couple of things, right? Suoliti got sent off for the high tackle, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, and Latrell Mitchell didn't. But we have a video cut that's going up on social where they look exactly the same, actually. In fact, you can more clearly see that Latrell Mitchell hits whoever the player was in the head. Okay, so that's Origin 1 and Origin 2. So even if you want to compare it to like different refereeing and they referee it differently, Latrell Mitchell didn't get sent off, and he should have got sent off. And I'm saying that as a New South Wales fan. And the only reason he should have got sent off is because Suoliti got sent off. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that inconsistency is what Wayne Bennett is trying to solve. Then you have the stupidity of Liam Martin not getting sin binned for that lifting tackle that was horrifying on Ruben Cotter. You know, and again, I'm a New South Wales fan. Like, Liam Martin probably should have been sin binned. And he definitely should have been sin binned if you compare it to Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's sin binning for a lifting tackle. Now, Warriors were getting smashed at that stage. It didn't make a difference on the game. They were down by like 50 or something and ended up losing the game 66-6. It's irrelevant about that sin binning, but the highlighting of the sin binning is that wasn't a lifting tackle in basically anyone's eyes. And then because he stacked the guy on the ground, Casey Badger calls down and says sin bin him, but Liam Martin didn't get sin binned. And then a little bit later, you have Liam Martin sin binned after Spencer Leniu is warned for being the third man in. Liam Martin ruffles the head of someone and gets sin binned. Yeah. And then Carrigan gets sin binned. Carrigan should have been sin binned because that was the warning. Don't be the third man in. And that is actually the rule. Don't be the third man in or you're going to get sin binned. The warning was don't be the third man in or you're going to get sin binned. And then like many people think he sin binned Liam Martin to square up the ledger and have it 12 on 12. So what Wayne Bennett is actually looking for is black and white rules to it. You know, like here is a black and white rule. A send-off becomes an instance of absolute foul play, intentional foul play, not accidental foul play, in which you are sent from the field for the entirety of the match and then your team gets to bring someone on 10 minutes. But the main part of it really is, whatever his other thing is, right, the main part of it really is absolute intentional foul play should be a send-off. and sin bin should only be for professional fouls. You should not be getting sin binned for an accidental lifting tackle. You should not be getting sin binned for an accidental hip drop, especially in cases where some people don't get sin binned for hip drops, like in Origin 1 against Spencer Leniu. That injured him. That actually injured him. I think he had to sit out the next week for the game for the Roosters. Whereas, whatever game it was on the weekend, somebody wasn't hip dropping and then caused by other people doing things, you get sin bin. And then you have other things like the head clashes, like, which one was it? Terrell May head clashes with Reece Walsh and gets sin bin for an accidental head clash. There were head clashes on this weekend that didn't get sin binned. And, there's a little bit of a weirdness to it now where there's a conspiracy that Reece Walsh is a protected species. Okay, because whenever anything happens to him, the ultimate punishment comes.
Well, this is the other point that, all that having been said, the referee can't be swayed by which player it is that gets hit, and the referee also shouldn't be swayed by, who it is who gets hit, and it's just. And whether the player gets injured either, that's another factor as well. That's the referee keeps getting swayed by these factors.
The Suoli'i versus Latrell Mitchell one is entirely dependent on, you could say it was Reece Walsh or not because you add up the other things that have happened with Reece Walsh. Reece Walsh being extra protected, but also the fact that he was worse injured. Now, one of the quotes for the Wayne Bennett, which is because he highlights a lot in the whole thing about the inconsistencies, right? This is the thing about the head high tackles for milking. He's had 4 players in the last 2 weeks hit with contact to the head by the opposition illegally, not one penalty in those 4 times. But 2 of those players taken out of the game on advice of the independent doctor who believed they were concussed, so were out of the game for 15 minutes. So the doctor, who's the expert, believes they were concussed. And yet the referee accused one of the players, in this case Herbie Farnworth, that he was milking it. So the referee said to a player, "You're milking it, no penalty, get up." Then the independent doctor looks at the video and goes, "Mate, he got hit in the head. Got to come off." And we now have twice now, on the weekend again, we had a situation in which play went on for 2 players and then they called back the penalty. We now know that in rugby league, which is I haven't seen ever, but now you know that it can go on for a few plays and then they can go back and call a penalty. So in this situation, after the referee accuses Herbie Farnworth of milking it, when the independent doctor calls down and said Herbie Farnworth's got to come off for concussion because I've checked the video, game should stop and the referee should go. First of all, referee should go back and apologise to Herbie Farnworth, but also blow the penalty for Herbie Farnworth because how can it not be a penalty for being hit in the head if the doctor said he got hit in the head and taken off? So that's what Wayne Bennett's main points about all of it is the consistencies or inconsistencies in refereeing decisions, which are, he wants to say that it's cost people games, and in some cases you can find those things. The only one I can always remember and bring up is the Jamie Soward milkman thing 10 years ago, right? Yeah. That literally refereeing decision cost the game. And we always talk about you can't say a refereeing decision in the 20th minute cost you the game. But it's fundamentally changing the quality of the game. And I've been harping on this same saying all year. These decisions they're making are not bringing new people to the game. All right? But they do drive people away. And so they need to look at the consistency. I don't think they absolutely... I really like the idea of send-off being only for intentional foul play. Like that... It was the Roosters. Tonga. Andrew Johns said it was hard to watch. It was hard to watch. If you saw that one, the swinging arm. It was like a old-fashioned coat hanger 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
See, that is a send-off.
Yeah, Junior Pauga.
Yeah, that's who it was, yeah. That is a send-off. Like, that was... I know it's accidental.
And it was on Connor Tracy, and Connor Tracy missed the game against the Sharks because of it.
That was accidental, but the simple fact is he ran past...
Not that should come into it.
Yeah, but it ran past it and then intentionally stuck his arm backwards, okay? And that's why it's intentional. Because he took thought out of it and recklessly did something stupid that hooked Connor Tracy, like coat-hanged Connor Tracy, right? That's a send-off. As I said, an accidental, everything is accidental, but an accidental lifting tackle caused by your teammate pulling on the leg or doing something, or an accidental hip drop, it's not a sin bin or a send-off. It's just an accident that needs to be penalised and moved on. In the event of injury, again, that doesn't come into it because injuries come a lot of the time. It's a freak accident. There's a big thing in jiu-jitsu that happened last year where a visiting guy went to a gym and the coach there did the thing called a Leo Vieira back take, which I've taught. I taught it 2 weeks ago. I've had it done to me, seriously, 1,000 times. It's a great back take. And in this instance, the guy underneath, his head was just twisted slightly in the wrong way and he broke his neck and was paralysed. Mm. Now, that doesn't mean that the guy who did the back take should be banned and sent off. You know, it's a freak accident that happens, and it shouldn't have any reflection on the person doing the back take. And it's the same with these tackles. Just because, hip drops shouldn't be there because they're dangerous, right? There's a heightened sense of injury. But you shouldn't get sin bin for every hip drop. Mm. Or you should get sin bin for every hip drop. At the moment, what happens is some hip drops are sin bins and some aren't. Creates inconsistency, a poor spectacle, and it's bad for the game. I think Wayne Bennett's whole idea of doing this send-off, 10-minute replacement, 3 interchange, blah, 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 is silly. But as I said, the whole thing he was really talking about was just the lack of consistency. He says consistency in his quotes 7 times. Mm. People always going about consistency. I know how hard consistency is. I'm frustrated with the inconsistencies, and so on and so forth.
So I agreed with the decision to send Suoliti off in Origin. That having been said, I think the player the offence was committed on, Reece Walsh, I think that had a bearing on the decision to send him off. And the fact that Reece Walsh got injured as a result of the tackle had a bearing on the send-off decision. No doubt about it. I think send-offs are there to act as a deterrent. If you don't want to lose a player, if you don't want your chances of winning a game to be ruined 7 minutes into it by having a player sent off, well, don't commit an act of foul play that gets you sent off. That's what I think.
But do you think Latrell Mitchell should have been sent off?
I need to have... I'm sure you, given that you've looked at it on social media, I'm sure you've had a closer look at that tackle. You've examined it more closely than me. If I have a look at it and I think and I deem the same, that the tackles were the same, then yeah, I do. Because I don't believe, in my opinion, the injury to the player and who the player is. I mean, it's just common sense to think that those factors should not come into it.
That's your homework for next week.
Yeah. I will look at that, and if I make the same assessment as you, that the tackle's just as bad, then yes. Because I think that Suoliti should have been sent off. So if it's similar, then yes.
I think he used the AFL doesn't have a send-off or something like that. And again, I don't think there shouldn't be a send-off.
That's the other issue in the AFL, right, is that... And I remember a number of years ago, a long time ago, a player called Alistair Lynch from the Brisbane Lions was playing against Port Adelaide in a grand final, and because he was about to retire, well, he just went out there and belted everybody in the grand final because he was about to retire, so he didn't care about a lengthy suspension, and he knew that he couldn't get sent off. And so that's my issue, is the AFL have gone the other way completely and just removed the send-off as... Players can't even be sin bin in the AFL. Yeah. They just get reported and that's it. But the issue with that, it's the same. My issue with that approach is that the team who the act of foul play is committed on get no benefit out of it. The matter goes to the tribunal in the AFL. The player cops a suspension. The benefit goes to the future opponents of that team. There's no benefit to the team who... the act of foul play is committed on other than just a free kick. And in a long 3-hour game of Aussie rules football, one free kick doesn't go very far. You need a lot more than that. Yeah. You need a player being sin-binned or sent off for it to have any sort of an impact. They
shouldn't use silly examples like that. But yeah, I totally agree.
No, but it's a good point that you raise. It's good to make that comparison.
Well, that's what I mean.
The AFL, you're no sin bin, no send off in the AFL. And to be honest, I don't agree with that either. Just
that's why
removing it from the rule book doesn't solve the problem in my view.
Yeah, that's why I think really it's silly of him to bring that up because
Because the AFL's gone too far the other way. And I don't like that system at all.
That has its own issues.
Send a player off at all.
It really has its own issues. Because honestly, if I was in a grand final and I was retiring after the grand final...
Yeah, well, you do an Alistair Lynch.
And if I was the coach, I would encourage my player to do that.
And I think it's a long time ago. I think it's 20 years ago now. But I think Alistair Lynch copped a long suspension. But you think he cared? He wasn't coming back. So what does he care?
I'd be doing spear tackles and everything, you know? Like, come on.
And he went out of his way to go after Port Adelaide players.
But in the end, they need to fix the consistency. That's it. Send off the sin bins, the penalties, the concussions, everything, decisions. Who the player is irrelevant. What the injury is irrelevant. If you break the rules, you get sin binned or sent off. But at the moment, it's random.
People just shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the send-off is a deterrent. It's all right. It had a huge impact on New South Wales. Of course it did. It's supposed to do that. That's why the rule's there. Maybe think twice before you hit someone in the head next time to avoid having a player sent off after 7 minutes.
And then Andrew Johns finally got his way and Will Price debuted after that funny falling out with Adam O'Brien over Will Price.
Yes.
And the Knights were good and Will Price was good. Bradman Best was amazing. And in the post-game interview, young Will Price, who's super young, dropped a couple of F-bombs. I immediately saw the ways and everybody complaining about this like they did with Latrell. And you know why? Because Latrell said, I don't give a fuck if it's blah, 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 and continued. Whereas Will Price said, oh, crap, sorry, I didn't mean to swear.
So there was that difference.
He hasn't done his media training, obviously.
That's true, but to be honest, I thought it was... I mean, Dean Ritchie from the Daily Telegraph said, good stuff.
No, he should get in trouble for it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And the ABC's Matt Bevan commented, young English Knights debutant Will Price just said effing twice in his first Australian television interview, and all I have to say is welcome to Newcastle, mate, you'll fit right in. Like, come on, I can see why. I know there's some differences. I know Latrell did it in a more obnoxious way and didn't apologise, whereas Will Price did apologise. So we need to make that distinction. But come on, saying that it's good stuff or no worries, mate, you'll fit right in.
Can't be encouraged. It can't be encouraged.
That's the thing. That's where if I'm Latrell Mitchell, I'm looking at that and going, I know we've done a big 180 on Latrell Mitchell on this podcast. But come on, if you're Latrell Mitchell looking at that, you're going, like, seriously, like, where's the fairness to me? There's double standards here. And I can't blame Latrell Mitchell for thinking that.
No, it's stupid. He should get in trouble. He should get in trouble. He should get a fine. And Latrell Mitchell should have copped the fine instead of a visit from the... Yeah. Who was it? Andrew Abdo? Andrew Abdo went and had a visit with him. He should have copped the fine, and Will Price should cop a fine. And, you know, you would hope that both of them would learn from it, and that would be it, and we should move on. The massive difference is Latrell Mitchell knew what he was doing was wrong and did it and doubled down. Will Price accidentally did something wrong and apologised for it. That's, again, that's a young guy clearly without proper media training. But he should cop a fine, and he shouldn't do it again.
Yeah, look, that's the thing. Latrell Mitchell was worse for the reasons that you have outlined. But it's not a case of, you'll fit right in or good stuff
that's
on the part of Will Price.
That's nonsense.
That's going too far the other way. And Latrell Mitchell has reason to be filthy at that. I think that reaction. And yeah, if I was him, I wouldn't be happy about that. So I think you still got kids watching that interview, you know.
No, it's terrible.
And it's an official interview given on the field after the game. But when Will Price does it, it's, you'll fit right in, mate, good stuff. When Latrell Mitchell does it, it's... I think someone even went as far as calling him a disgrace to the game when he did it. So you got Latrell Mitchell's reaction is full outrage to what he did. Will Price's reaction is, you'll fit right in, good stuff. Come on.
It should be...
we've got to be fair
Like I said, consistency. It should be a fine. And the media want to complain about consistency, but they need to be consistent as well. Doesn't matter who the player is and what the thing is. They need to be consistent. So,
so where are the calls for... Where's people asking Andrew Abdo to do something about this?
Andrew Abdo's got to go
with Latrell Mitchell.
Go visit with Will Price and just remind him you're not allowed to swear.
Yeah, well, see, now the problem is they can't find Will Price now because they didn't find Latrell Mitchell. So they've dug themselves.
They can't find anybody ever, but they can change the rules to make sure that it's a compulsory fine. And that's what they can do. But, it's just stupid. Inconsistencies. Meanwhile, though, we're still Queenslanders. I'm not. Billy Slater's quickly becoming a polarising coach in the league.
Yes.
Being a bit of a sore loser. Yeah. And he was a bit of a sore winner. Yeah. And now a bit 100%. Of a sore loser after the Origin game.
It was a real smart aleck performance in that press conference after the game that the reporter asked him a very straightforward question, a valid question after a defeat of that nature. Are you going to be making changes? And all he said was, we're still Queenslanders. Didn't give a proper answer. He was pressed on it, as he should have been, because he didn't give a proper answer. And he said, look, what do you mean by that? And he said, we're from Queensland. Very, very smart aleck response, stating the bleeding obvious. An insult to the journalist's intelligence, I would have thought. He didn't answer the question properly, so the journalist rightly called him out on it and asked for a proper answer. He didn't get it. A very, very poor display from Billy Slater. Sour grapes, absolutely.
Sore winner, sore loser. Typical Queenslander.
Yeah. Obviously, the journalist knows he's from Queensland.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Of course, the journalist was asking a follow-up because he didn't answer it properly. Yeah. He's not asking what state.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, he's not asking. He knows where you're from. Okay. Some of the reactions of these Queenslanders have not reflected on them at all.
No.
We're going to get to...
But they're still Queensland.
We're going to get to another one very shortly.
And then, he was also called out over the selection of Kurt Capewell in Game 2. I didn't see a problem with him selecting Kurt Capewell. Didn't work out.
Yeah. It was more... It was this exchange... the Kurt Capewell... Okay, he only had 5 runs for the game, played 37 minutes. It probably didn't work out. Look, where I'd go... Well, they were down 34-0 at half-time. I don't think, you could have Superman on the bench and you're not coming back from 34-0 at half-time. But, I just thought... Like Phil Rothfield, all he did was call out that selection. That was all he did. He said, look, I think Billy Slater should be held accountable for making that selection of Kurt Capewell. Phil Rothfield was arguing that they should have picked David Fifita on the bench because he provides more X factor. Look, that may be a fair point, but as I just said, I don't think David Fifita would have done anything about them being down 34-0 at half-time. But then again, Gorden Tallis' retort to Rothfield was, so you want us to sack Billy? Is that what you want? He's not saying Billy Slater should be sacked. He's just saying that you could question the selection of Kurt Capewell. That doesn't mean he's saying that Slater should be sacked. These Queenslanders are so thin-skinned, so sensitive to criticism after they lose a game of State of Origin.
Yeah, they're sore losers and sore winners. That's it. Sore losers, sore winners. And then,
it's very poor
if
form.
they were to, I guarantee you, if they lose this in the next one, don't know if they will, and I'm a pessimist, so I doubt they'll lose. But they're gonna be saying stupid things like, yeah, but we won 9 out of 10. You don't remember the 2000s? Like, that's the kind of thing they do. They can't accept the better team won. All they do is have tanties about it and take like heaps of offence to anything you say.
What a bizarre statement from Tallis. What an overreaction. Making criticism of one selection doesn't mean you're calling for the coach to be sacked.
Billy Slater should be sacked. I'm calling for him to be sacked.
Seriously.
Just because they want to get rid of him. Yeah, absolutely nonsense. But continuing with Gorden Tallis.
There's more on Gorden Tallis.
He's had a whinge about Latrell Mitchell.
He has. He wasn't happy with Latrell Mitchell pushing Reece Walsh and crunching Valentine Holmes, smashing him in the head. He's saying, he's basically saying, maybe that's why you get hostility from the crowd, Latrell. Maybe they don't like what you're doing.
Well, the crowd loved Latrell, so...
I'll tell you what, though, it's a bit rich coming from Gorden Tallis, though, isn't it? This is a player who belted the living daylights out of Ben Ross. And he's criticising a player for acts that completely pale in comparison to what he did to Ben Ross. So, and, you know, all he did was say, he can do his talking by playing and he was one of the best players on the field, but don't push him, Walsh. And then he goes into how he smashed Valentine Holmes. Gave Latrell Mitchell very little credit for the game that he played. Very little credit. Those criticisms of Latrell, they should have been a complete side note. The main story was how well Latrell played, set up the Blues' second try with that flick pass for Brian To'o. And then he scored his team's 5th try. He was part of that left edge that dominated all night. That was just brushed aside by Tallis, a throwaway line of credit, and then went into criticism of his hits on Reece Walsh or his pushing of Reece Walsh and his
I love him
and his contact with Valentine.
I loved him manhandling Walsh. It was awesome. It's a highlight for the rest of it.
Gorden Tallis having a go at him over that. We've all seen the vision of what he did to Ben Ross back in the day. It's a bit rich coming from him, isn't it?
Yeah, that was the thing. People in glass houses.
Oh, yeah. Very appropriate in this instance,
That's what they're like. And then Phil Gould said Queensland played soft in game 2. You know, you touched on this after the game where it looked like they didn't play very well because they knew that they had the third game up in Queensland in their pocket anyway. Well, we're only going to know the truth of that in game 3.
That's the thing. See, what he says... if Queensland win Game 3, what he said here is going to be completely meaningless. And in fact, not only that, he's going to look pretty silly, I think, if Queensland win Game 3. That having been said, if New South Wales win Game 3, I think we can come back to this and go, this cost them. If Queensland win Game 3, this isn't going to mean anything.
It's irrelevant.
If Queensland win Game 3, the loss in Game 2, as you said, completely irrelevant.
It's best 2 or 3, and whoever wins the 2.
That's what he's got to be careful of, Phil Gould here, okay? I know Michael Maguire calling out Billy Slater for being in a glass house. That worked in their favour for Game 2. But they've got to be careful, New South Wales, that they don't poke the bear too many times. And Phil Gould's someone who... I think that he's very strategic with what he says publicly in regard to State of Origin. I think he bleeds blue. He really wants New South Wales to win. I think if you were to say that who are the 2 people who want New South Wales to win State of Origin the most, we've touched on it before on this podcast. It's Phil Gould and it's Andrew Johns.
Definitely.
They want New South Wales to win more than anyone else in New South Wales. Every public comment Phil Gould makes on Origin is made through the prism of what's best for New South Wales here. Well, how can I best serve New South Wales with my public commentary here? He's got to be careful that he doesn't poke the bear too many times here, Phil Gould.
I wonder what the current odds are for State of Origin.
Have we got him on SmartB?
So Queensland are the favourites at $1.85 to New South Wales $1.96. And, of course, the odds don't change this far out from a rugby league game.
It's just really hard not to favour Queensland at Suncorp Stadium in a decider, given we've been through it. New South Wales have only won 2 of 13 deciders played in. The
line is 1.5 as well. It's expected to be
But it just
a close
shows,
game.
as emphatic as that win from New South Wales was, that 38-18 win, that record first half being up 34-0 at half-time, as emphatic as that was, Queensland are still favourites for Game 3.
New South Wales has got to be really careful not to have someone sin-binned or sent off is the main thing, because as soon as they were down to 12, even though it was 12 on 12, their defensive tactics didn't work, because that's what it was. Both games, actually. The first game, Suoliti stuffed it up. It was the rushing defence. One person runs out of the line and everyone closes the gap. As soon as it was down to 12, rushing defence, someone rushed out of the line. It left a massive gap that they couldn't close because they didn't have enough players. And up that left edge, Queensland just carved them up. Short side, short side, short side, short side. Just carving them up over and over and over again.
And that's the thing. Like, you'd have to think at this stage, I know we don't agree with it, but you'd have to think Ashley Klein is going to get the gig for Game 3. So it's going to be much easier for Ashley Klein to send a New South Wales player off in Brisbane than it was for him to do it in Sydney.
Exactly.
And he did it in Sydney. And obviously I'm not saying that where the game's on should have a bearing, but come on, there's a subconscious element to this. The subconscious of the referee, it comes into play. Of course it does. Why else would New South Wales have only won 2 of 13 deciders in Brisbane, but yet they've won 5 out of 6 Origin games played at the MCG?
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, the crowd gets in the head of the referee in these deciders in Brisbane, and New South Wales have to play so much better there to get the result. And the record indicates
Let's hope they do. That's it for Rugby League for the week. The T20 World Cup finished. India beat South Africa. And Virat Kohli and somebody else retired from T20 international cricket.
Well, you touched on Virat Kohli. He was man of the match, making 76 off 59 balls. India becoming the first team to win I've got to get the line in, men's T20 World Cup without losing a game all tournament. India won all 8 matches they played in the tournament and had 1 washout the first round game against Canada. So, well done to India, that 7-run win over South Africa in the final. I think we're both sort of glad we don't really have to talk about this anymore, aren't we?
Thank God that's over. On to Wimbledon, which starts
tonight.
Yes. Unfortunately, we have 2 Aussies playing against each other in the opening round.
Yes.
Which means we'll immediately lose 1 Aussie.
It's Alex de Minaur going up against James Duckworth. Of course, we're going to have to go for Alex de Minaur in this one because he's far more chance than James Duckworth of going further into the tournament. He's the number 9th seed. Originally de Minaur had been drawn to play Corentin Moutet, but the Frenchman withdrew from the tournament because of a wrist injury. So this has given Duckworth an opportunity as a lucky loser. He was knocked out in the last round of qualifying. So... he's going into it with good form. Duckworth recently reached the Stuttgart quarterfinals on grass. So, a tricky first-up opponent for de Minaur, but you'd have to think that as a top 10 player, de Minaur is going to get through there. He's scheduled to play Felix Auger-Aliassime, the 17th seed, in the last 32, the third round, if he gets through. That's if Auger-Aliassime can get past another Aussie, Tanasi Kokonakis, in the first round. So he's on track to face Hubert Hurkacz in the 4th round, de Minaur, and then he's even on track to face Novak Djokovic in the quarterfinals after that. But I wouldn't be looking that far ahead if I was de Minaur. He's got a long way to go before he gets to that point. Good
time to get what's his face, Djokovic though.
Yeah, well,
he hasn't been in form.
Yeah, well, Djokovic. He's going to play just weeks after undergoing knee surgery, the 2nd seed. He's going to play Czech qualifier Kit Kapriva. So Djokovic is in for this. He's going to play. Geez, I don't know what sort of shape he's going to be in coming off that knee surgery. I think a main reason he's playing Djokovic is because... Well, Federer, the one record that Roger Federer still has over Novak Djokovic is he's got more Wimbledon titles than him. He's got 8 Wimbledon titles, Federer. Djokovic has got 7. It's one of the last standing records that Federer still has over Novak Djokovic. And I think at his age of 37, Djokovic knows, it's possible. A year is a long time for a 37-year-old player. It's possible that this is Novak Djokovic's last Wimbledon. And so he might see it as his last opportunity to get to 8 Wimbledon titles. The way he's come into it, I don't think he's going to do it though, no, Djokovic. I'm not sure if you've got any odds there, whether they're up on the website or not on who's going to win, but I'm guessing Alcaraz and Sinner would both be shorter than Djokovic for this event.
Let me see if I can get... no, there's no... Oh, there's futures. Here we go. Djokovic paying 433 and Sinner is 280, Alcaraz 325.
And so Djokovic is third favourite, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I think they got it about right there.
Yeah. De Minaur and Duckworth is on Tuesday at 7 p.m. I don't know if that's local time.
I think that'll just be... The schedule hasn't actually been done for that yet. So,
they're all Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Yeah. So I think that's 7 p.m. That's just a generic... time. I think you'll get you'll get a firmer time once the schedule for Tuesday's been done.
I hate the way tennis does this. So today, 8 p.m.
But Monday's schedule has been done.
Yeah. 8 p.m. No, it hasn't. Oh, it has. Yeah. Google is just so. Yeah, and then in other news, Seriously, I don't know how Djokovic is going to go, but yeah.
Look, best place to go for the scheduling is the Wimbledon website. Google's a bit unreliable.
Yeah, it is, because it scrapes. It doesn't.
Yeah.
So yesterday was UFC 303, which was the Ship of Theseus, if you know that philosophical thing, where if you replace every part, is it still the same ship? Originally, it was meant to be Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler as the main event, and then the co-main event was Jamal Hill versus someone, and then Jamal Hill got replaced, and then Conor McGregor was out, and then blah, blah, blah. And then even yesterday, on the day of the event, Brian Ortega pulled out of the co-main event, and it ended up being Dan Ige taking the fight on an hour's notice or something like that. But Alex Pereira knocked out Yuri Prohaska, meaning Alex Pereira has now beat that guy twice and retained his belt. It was a stunning first round on the buzzer. Alex Pereira knocked Yuri Prohaska out, like flash knocked out on the buzzer. So they were able to recover Yuri Prohaska. But then he got a marvellous head kick in the second round and knocked him out and finished it. So who knows who Alex Pereira is going to fight next. He talked about possibly going a heavyweight now and getting a third belt, which would be amazing. Maybe we'll see Pereira versus John Jones. Who knows? Other than that, it was a pretty lackluster card. One good fight, really. The rest were a bit, kind of boring. That's it from me. I love Alex Pereira. In social media blower-uppers, Vic, our regular commenter, said on episode 82 when we were talking about Ricky Stuart, one of our new favourite topic, yes, the Canberra Teflon, air quotes, Raiders, where no negative press sticks. 100%. Don't be too hard on, and then talking about when we were talking about Wayne Bennett coaching two teams, don't be too hard on Uncle Wayne. At least he's consistent at every club he goes to. As a Dragons supporter, I do remember he brought his son Darius with him from the Broncos, along with Costigan, Wayman and Jeremy Smith, etc. I have no doubt if he had stayed at the Dragons, we would have won again in 2011, but it went downhill when he announced he was leaving during that season. What I'm saying is it works both ways. It's not ideal, but that's how it works. Good luck, Christian, meaning Christian Wolf. Exactly, Vic. Dragons were top of the ladder, and then the week after Wayne Bennett signed with Newcastle, they went on a massive slide. I think they finished like sixth or something ridiculous like that, because Wayne Bennett started signing every player in the team to Newcastle. Forgot about Jeremy Smith. I'm pretty sure Jeremy Smith was also another one that went. I think he went to Cronulla. And that was it. That was the end. So the Dragons finished fifth. They were at the top of the ladder for most of this season. As soon as Wayne Bennett, might have been around 11 or something, around 12, as soon as he signed with the Knights. So they were the top of the ladder at around 14, and then just started dropping from there. So that's when it was. Like around 13, he signed with the Knights, and the Dragons just went downhill from there.
Well, this is the danger with Wayne Bennett. It's a double-edged sword signing him. It's great while he's there, but he leaves you in a mess, and that's what that's what the Dolphins would be worried about now. As we said, the Dolphins it was probably in their best interest to just let him go as soon as he signed as Rabbitohs coach, because now he's helping the Rabbitohs already, and not only that, you can only bet that he's going to be talking to some Dolphins players behind the scenes, getting in their ear, trying to
they've already signed Ewan Aikens. So round 9, the Dolphins were 4th, and they got to 4th, and they stayed at 4th. And then now they went to 15 round 16, and then now 16 round 17. Yeah. So they're
and now he's helping the Rabbitohs, who are now on a run of wins, who now could, much later in the year, could potentially be competing with the Dolphins for a spot in the top 8. And he's on a huge salary, over $1 million salary with the Dolphins for this year to be their coach.
Yep.
So if I'm the Dolphins, I would not be happy with this arrangement of him seemingly just being on the phone with Ben Hornby and telling him where to play Keon Kolomatangi.
Yeah, it's very bad. So I feel bad for the Dolphins, and I hope Christian Wolf goes okay. That's it for the week. Don't forget to follow at SmartB app on all social medias, answer the trivia questions, and tag your friends to win 2 tickets to any regular season game for any sport in Australia. The next winner will be announced today. Follow the SmartB Racing Update podcast with Bryce and Lewis to get all your racing tips. And I think that's it. Yeah, that is it. All right, then. It's good to have. That was a good one. See you next week, Dan.
Thanks, John. See you next week, mate.
Bye, producer to Double Chairs. Bye.